Armor for the journey, building community, power in an era of rollbacks. Have you ever felt that moment when the ground shifts beneath your feet, when the structures you thought would protect you suddenly, don't? I recently had the profound privilege of interviewing Tonya Brewer-Jackson, whose wisdom and insights have transformed how thousands of Black professionals navigate hostile workplace environments. Her revolutionary approach to community building has quite literally saved careers, preserved mental health, and sparked movements that continue to ripple through corporate America. What makes Tanya extraordinary isn't just her strategic brilliance, though that alone would be remarkable, but her unflinching courage to speak truth in spaces designed to silence it. She has become a lighthouse for those navigating treacherous professional waters, illuminating paths forward when institutional maps have been deliberately erased. The world doesn't always make space for our full humanity. Sometimes it actively works to shrink us. But what if the very act of reclaiming your power isn't just personal, it's revolutionary? When corporations began quietly dismantling their diversity initiatives in 2024 and 2025, many viewed it as just another pendulum swing in American politics. For Black professionals who had finally begun to breathe a little easier after the promises of 2020, however, it wasn't abstract policy. It was oxygen being slowly extracted from the room. As Tanya so eloquently put it during our interview, they handed out pink slips while distributing golden parachutes elsewhere, but we've never needed their permission to fly. The question becomes, how do we soar when the institutional winds that briefly supported us shift direction? The answer I've learned isn't in waiting for better weather, it's in building our own armor together. Consider Marcus, a marketing executive whose story Tanya shared with me. After his company began rolling back diversity initiatives, he found himself repeatedly overlooked for promotions despite consistently outperforming his peers. The playbook had changed without announcement. The metrics for success suddenly seemed fluid. For 2 years, Marcus meticulously documented everything: his achievements, the shifting goalposts, the patterns of who advanced and who didn't. He created spreadsheets tracking projects, outcomes, revenue generated. When colleagues casually took credit for his work in meetings, he followed up with emails summarizing his contributions, copying relevant stakeholders. Documentation, Tanya explained, became his armor. When Marcus finally challenged his third promotion denial, he didn't arrive with vague complaints. He arrived with evidence so compelling that the company had no choice but to recognize not just the individual injustice, but the systemic failure. He secured both his promotion and appropriate compensation. But here's what's truly remarkable, and what Tanya emphasized repeatedly in our conversation: Marcus didn't stop there. He shared his documentation templates with other Black professionals in the company. His individual act of self advocacy evolved into a community resource that has since been adopted by organizations like BNX, which now provides legal frameworks and support systems for thousands navigating similar challenges. One person's armor became a shield for many. This isn't just about corporate politics, it's about something far more fundamental: the right to author your own story. For too long, Black professionals, particularly Black women, have been told that silence is professionalism, that vulnerability is weakness, that our full humanity is somehow unprofessional. The most insidious form of power, Tanya told me, leaning forward with intensity, is convincing people they don't deserve to speak their truth. This brings me to the second insight from our conversation that absolutely floored me. Your story is sacred, and sharing it heals both you and others. The Melanin Con conference began as a small gathering of Black professionals in Washington, D.C., seeking connection during the isolation that followed corporate diversity rollbacks. Today, it draws thousands. What transformed it from networking event to movement stories? Unfiltered, unedited, unapologetic stories. At Melanin Con, participants don't just exchange business cards, they exchange truths. They speak openly about the microaggressions that make them question their sanity. They share strategies for preserving mental health while navigating hostile environments. They celebrate victories that might seem small to outsiders but represent mountains climbed. One attendee told Tonya, for the first time in my professional life, I didn't have to translate myself. I could just be. The healing that happens in these spaces isn't accidental, it's by design. When we've been conditioned to believe our experiences aren't valid, or worse, that naming them makes us difficult, simply speaking our truth becomes an act of reclamation. But here's what's truly revolutionary about spaces like Melanin Khan: they transform individual healing into collective power. Participants don't just leave feeling better, they leave equipped. Business partnerships form, mentorship relationships develop. People who arrive feeling isolated depart with networks of support that function as both safety net and launching pad. As Maya Angelou wisely observed, there is no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside you. The corollary might be that there is no greater power than communities that make space for those stories to breathe. Which brings me to perhaps the most actionable insight from my conversation with Tonya. No one reclaims their power alone. Community armor is essential, especially when institutional protection disappears. Twyla Weaver's story exemplifies this principle perfectly. As a team leader at a company that abruptly reversed its diversity commitments, Twyla watched morale plummet. Colleagues who had finally felt safe bringing their full selves to work suddenly retreated behind professional masks. The fear of retaliation for speaking up about injustice created a silence so thick you could feel it in meeting rooms. Rather than accepting this new normal, Twyla created what she called community armor sessions, regular gatherings where team members could speak freely about their experiences without fear of judgment or repercussion. These weren't official company programs, they were grassroots spaces of truth telling. Participation soared. People who had been considering resignation found reasons to stay. Most importantly, these sessions transformed isolation into solidarity. When systems fail us, Tanya reflected, we must become the system for each other. This isn't just beautiful rhetoric, it's practical survival. When formal structures withdraw their support, informal networks become lifelines. The colleague who validates your experience of a microaggression in real time, the mentor who helps you navigate a politically charged promotion process, the peer who reminds you of your worth when the world seems determined to discount it. These connections aren't just nice to have, they're necessary armor in environments designed to make us doubt ourselves. As Audre Lorde powerfully stated, caring for myself is not self indulgence, it is self preservation. And that is an act of political warfare. I would add that caring for each other is equally revolutionary. The brilliance of Tanya's approach and what makes her work so transformative is that it refuses the false choice between individual empowerment and collective action. We need both. We deserve both. Reclaiming your power isn't a one-time event. It's not a workshop you attend or a book you read. It's a daily practice of choosing yourself, even when, especially when systems and structures fail to choose you. It means documenting your achievements when others would erase them. It means speaking your truth when silence feels safer. It means building community armor that protects not just you, but those coming after you. This work isn't easy. There are days when the armor feels heavy, when the documentation feels exhausting, when speaking up feels like shouting into a void. But as Tanya reminded me, with a smile that somehow held both gentleness and steel, the alternative is surrendering authorship of your story to people who don't value its beauty. I refuse to do that. And I suspect you do too. So here is my challenge to you. Don't wait for permission to reclaim your power. Start today. Find your Marcus moment. Document what matters. Create your melanin con space where stories flow freely. Build your community armor like Twyla, because we are stronger together than we could ever be alone. The systems designed to support diversity may be eroding, the institutional commitments may be wavering, but our commitment to ourselves and to each other must be unwavering. When they dismantle the structures meant to protect us, we will become architects of new ones. When they try to silence our voices, we will speak with such clarity that our truth becomes undeniable. When they attempt to isolate us, we will forge connections so strong that our community becomes impenetrable. This is not just about survival, this is about transformation. This is about creating a world where we don't just exist, we thrive. So take that documentation template, start that community circle, share that story you've kept hidden. Your act of reclamation might become someone else's roadmap to freedom. Remember, they may hand out pink slips while distributing golden parachutes elsewhere, but we have always known how to build our wings from the fragments they left behind, and together we will soar.